First Peter 2 calls us living stones, a holy priesthood, and people brought out of darkness. But beneath that familiar language is a question Peter never stops to explain. So, who is the stone Isaiah said Israel would stumble over? And why does Peter place that figure at the center of God's new temple? Is this simply Christian identity or something far older and more profound? We're going to talk about that and maybe a little bit more. So, let's keep it right here. So, what do you think? Should we do a show?
I'm for that.
Do you have some energy? Get
It's
some.
the only reason I'm here.
Very well. You're listening to Mount Hermeneutics, where three Marines give their perspective on God, faith, and spirituality with a heavy lean on the divine council worldview. This is not your grandma's Sunday school, nor is it always for the Christian faint of heart. Nothing about who we are or what we say make us experts. But you better believe we'll have a take, and perhaps it won't suck. Remember that Mount Hermeneutics is free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. If you're watching a video, you're on YouTube. And with YouTube, you want to, hit the like button. You want to subscribe. You want to hit a notification bell so you never miss a single episode of Mount Hermeneutics. And leave a comment, especially if we say something disagreeable.
Or agreeable.
And, yeah, of course. If it's your first time with us, I'm Andre. That's Matt. That's Brian. Fellas, what's happening?
Hello. Boys, good to see you.
Good.
Indeed. It is good to see you.
Yeah. Good.
And
It's
you.
also good to be seen by you
Anything,
and by all the viewers.
anything cool in the week?
I watched The Odyssey.
Yeah?
It's a good movie.
Was it so woke you couldn't take it?
I think if you are at all aware of the controversy, then you've been exposed to all of the wokeness.
Oh,
And
nice.
and I'm not even sure the wokeness was being done in earnest by Mr. Nolan. I
Hmm.
kind of think he was just playing the Hollywood game so he could,
Just just central so he can get an Oscar nod.
yeah.
Hey,
And
so let me skew these numbers right here. Cast this person and that person. Boom. Oscar. Because I make the best movies, and there's nothing you can do about it.
He
yeah,
does make good
Nice.
movies, typically. I mean, I'm
I
I'm I'm shocked to hear that, but I'm also heartened because I go to see it Wednesday. So
I don't want to I don't want to bias you too much, but I loved it. I'm in awe of how good it was.
no, I mean I was gonna go watch it anyway. I'll have
huh.
my arms a little crossed. I hope to uncross them at some point during the show.
Hmm.
So we'll see.
Well, you usually hate movies that I love, so maybe that's going to
I
lower the
don't think
bar
that's
for you.
entirely true.
Let me think.
Mm.
Um, you hated Dragon
I don't
Slayer.
think
I did
I don't
dislike
think
Dragon
Matt hates
Slayer.
epics.
I tend to like epics.
Dragon Slayer is an epic. Have you
It's epically a terrible epic.
have you seen Dragon Slayer?
No, no, I haven't.
So you don't know. You don't know what you're talking
I
Dre,
about.
you
don't,
would
I don't know
actually
what I'm
like
talking
it.
about. Well, I like terrible movies, so
Exactly.
Listeners who have seen Dragon Slayer, weigh in.
so
Tell this guy why he's wrong.
Please
Um,
do.
and if you haven't seen Dragon Slayer, you are wrong and you need to correct it.
No, don't. Brian, we're going to
It's a
lose
great movie.
listeners. We're going to lose subs.
This son of a bitch made me watch that movie, and I hate him now. I hate this podcast. Mount Hermeneutics can go and hermeneute over there. So,
I've never heard hermeneutics turned into such
A
a
terrible
pain,
verb.
just an
go,
attack.
you go that way and
Go
hermeneute.
you go
Go
hermeneute.
hermeneute yourself.
Oh, you want me to hermeneute myself? Cool.
Very well.
Yes, no, hermeneute yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say yes, no, yes, no, hermeneute myself. Very well.
Okay. I was at the Santa Barbara Wine Festival working a little security action. And I was surprised to learn that the people running the event are all, wait for it, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Really?
Can they drink?
Yeah.
Huh.
Uh,
I didn't think they drank.
They can drink. They don't get drunk.
Hmm.
That's kind of the way I understand it. I don't know what Dre's experience has been.
yeah, but you're also not supposed to have crazy associations and
Soirees and
you
stuff. Now
know,
that's off
right,
for
right, yeah.
non-Jehovah's
Like
Witnesses.
this
It's
is
kind of the part that's different. That's
like, yo,
yeah. Now if they
but
like were checking you for your card and only J
right,
Dubs can come into the thing, that would be
right,
different.
right, yeah. So yeah, it's
Hmm.
interesting. Had an interesting conversation with the guy
Yeah.
Did you
because
correct them on
because
the
he learned I was a
Trinity?
Marine and he was very he said, well, I'm neutral when it comes to that, but thank you for your service. I'm like, oh,
Is that
you're
when you
neutral.
you should have been like, you should be neutral about this event? What are you
Yeah.
talking about? Maybe those in
Like
glass houses.
so yeah, that was fun. But
All
yeah,
right.
Comic-Con starts this week.
Yeah.
Nice.
San Diego.
Take
You know
pictures,
that
man.
one
Yeah, you should take some pictures. We could put them on the show.
yeah, some influencers will be there for sure,
Yeah.
wearing outfits that probably aren't appropriate for this show.
I'll be the
But
judge.
yeah, very well, very well.
Trying to think what would be inappropriate for this show.
Exactly.
He's like, for this show?
I'll
Um,
allow it.
well, yeah. Uh,
Might make for some good thumbnails. Get our clicks up.
it's like a ticket for that's like $1,000
Is it really?
Huh.
for one day. It's like 850
Actually, I
bucks.
believe that because when the Comic Con version of whatever comes through Oklahoma, it's like 250. Because Carrie wanted to go one year because they were going to have a Jurassic Park thing, so she wanted to go
Right.
like see that, and it was like 250, and I'm like, and she's like, I don't want to go that bad. I'm like,
You, you want you want to drop $5 on this?
yeah,
No, I mean,
for your grown ass to go
Disneyland's
look at
cheaper,
animatronics, like, come on.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
Lightning round.
In one sentence, what is the central message of First Peter chapter 2?
In one sentence? It
Don't
can be a
be a
run-on
wuss.
sentence, though.
Yeah, whatever.
Um, that we, the believers in Jesus, are the house of God made of no, that's inadequate. I mean we're the temple, but that doesn't sum it up. We are the restored Eden. Um, but it's rapid fire, so I'm gonna leave it at that.
Who who are the living stones Peter describes?
We are.
What is the spiritual house being built?
We are.
Why does Peter call believers a royal priesthood?
Because we are not merely an active, passive receptacle of God's nature. We are the active bearers of it.
Of the priesthood of Melchizedek.
Melchizedek.
What does a cornerstone represent in the chapter?
Uh, the um the central stone of the temple from which the rest of the
Why
temple
does
is built.
why does Peter combine Isaiah 28, Psalm 118, and Isaiah 8?
That's actually pretty deep. It's a callback to the Davidic covenant, but there's some Hebrew wordplay going on there that was obvious to the original audience, but is somewhat lost to us, which we tonight will restore.
Bum bum bum.
In Isaiah 8, who is actually called the stone of stumbling?
Um, I think it's the Messiah, but I'd have to look that up. I
Okay.
haven't looked at Isaiah 8 in a while.
Is Peter merely borrowing Yahweh's imagery or making an identity claim?
Yes.
Can the cornerstone be distinct from God and still share God's divine identity?
Like you mean like this that the second Yahweh?
Sure.
Then yeah.
Does First Peter chapter 2 point only to Christian identity or also toward the two powers in heaven?
Yes.
And that concludes the lightning round. All right, Brian. So, what got us started? What was going on with you that you suggested perhaps we dig in a little bit into First Peter chapter 2?
Okay. Well, I thought about that. Well, I've been kind of me and a recently new Christian have been doing a Bible study. We're studying
Mhm.
First Peter, and we kind of been camping out on this for a while. And it kind of played into it seems like a fitting sequel for our discussion last week about the two powers in heaven and how um Yahweh in the absolute and eternal sense is known through the second Yahweh, who is Jesus Christ. And so this is kind of a fitting continuation of that. So if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna read the relevant passage here, then kind of explain what's going on.
Yeah, go for it.
That's cool. All right, so Peter chapter 2 rid yourselves therefore of all malice and all guile, insincerity, envy, and all slander. Like newborn infants, long for the pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow into salvation, if indeed you have tasted that the Lord is good. Come to him, a living stone, though rejected by mortals, yet chosen and precious in God's sight. And like living stones, you are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. For it stands in Scripture, see, I am laying in Zion a stone, a cornerstone chosen and precious, and whoever believes in him will not be put to shame. To you then who believe, he is precious, but for those who do not believe, the stone that the builders rejected has become the very head of the corner, and a stone that makes them stumble, and a rock that makes them fall. They stumble because they disobey the word as they were destined to do. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people, in order that you may proclaim the mighty acts of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Um, and there's more there that would be awesome to get into, but it's that's probably enough for now. But the thing that kind of keeps us camped out on this is there are so many different layers to this. There are so many different themes and kind of plot lines from the Old Testament that kind of converge on this. Well, they converge on Jesus Christ. He's the fulcrum, and then they kind of their meaning for us is kind of defined by that. And I think we tend to gloss over what's being said here, because there's so many different layers to it. It's easy to just read that and think, oh cool, we're the temple, we're priests, but we don't really wrap our heads around what that means in a practical sense. One, because we lack that background. Two, because I think we're projecting the wrong paradigm on that. And and there are kind of multiple waves of suggestion here. One, it's a really good case study for like whatever you're reading in the New Testament. It's typically the very tip of an iceberg of meaning that has roots going all the way back into the back to Genesis. Um, but once you have that depth of meaning, its practical import for us today as the church is wildly transformed by it. Um, so that's the basic gist of it. So,
When you say we're coming at it from the wrong perspective, what do you mean?
Um, well, the gospel is 100% eschatology or end times. That's the promise. Reading First Peter, for instance, there are like five to seven times, depending on how you parse it. The hope that he's holding out is um, like chapter one, therefore prepare your minds for action, be self-controlled, set your hope fully on the grace to be given you when Jesus Christ is revealed. It's always looking ahead to this future historical event when our faith will be validated, when all of our efforts will come to fruition and consummation. It's 100% eschatological, 0% afterlife. It like there's at no point does Peter or really anybody in the Bible point to at no point do they say set your hope fully on the grace to be given you when you die and are reunited with your loved ones in heaven. That's just not in the picture. And that difference in paradigm makes a huge difference for how we understand passages like First Peter 2, where it talks about how we are not just the temple, but a holy priesthood, which are this really different aspects of the same concept. Um, so yeah, to answer your question, that's the difference in paradigm that we bring to it. But um it's it's all the more muddled by the fact that we don't have that background in the Old Testament and in the culture that the Old Testament informed that spelled out that meaning. So
Okay.
You think that's because in some circles we sort of gloss over the Old Testament
yeah,
because all
I
that
think
all that
that's
all that matters is Jesus, right? And
And
yeah,
the Old Testament's nothing but a bunch of begots and begets and shouts and
yeah,
shout nots.
yeah. Um, I think that's largely it, but it's also when we do read the Old Testament, we are largely Michael Heiser talked a lot about this. How he would often get criticism from more kind of little o orthodox minded people because he was mistakenly taken to be anti-creed. He
mm,
wasn't anti-creed, but he was anti starting with creeds and
To, to,
reading
to,
them
to
back
flesh
into
your
the text.
theology out based on the creed.
Right. Instead, you should start with the text and then arrive at the creed.
Hmm.
But we did a show about about the Epistle of Barnabas a while back of how they had this very um, pronounced anti-Jewish attitude very early on that caused them to actively denounce a lot of what had been kind of standard interpretations of the Bible, but because they were Jewish, they got denounced and then they projected it created an interpretive background that was filled by Platonic metaphysics. So that's where you get a lot of the idea about the soul migration to heaven in the afterlife. But so yeah, it's a combination of not having that background and projecting the wrong ideas on backwards into the text. So um
Some might call that eisegeting.
yep, it's hermeneutin.
They're not hermeneuting very well.
it's rootin' tootin' hermeneutin.
Um so yeah, do you have any questions or should I
I
give
don't think I have any
examples?
questions. No, I mean, I think
Um
that makes sense.
okay. Like the living stones imagery that he uses. He says that Jesus, as we come to him, a living stone, rejected by mortals but chosen by God. This is one of the major things that we miss that was perfectly obvious to early Christians, and it kind of makes sense of some of the things that we find in in early Christian writings like the Didache. So in Hebrew, there's a play on words where the word for son is ben, in plural it's benim. The word for stones is abanim. They have the same three consonant root that basically means to build something. Um, a house in the sense of a family was built out of sons, out of banim. A house in the sense of a home is built out of abanim. And you kind of see this wordplay going on in God's covenant with David in uh 2 Samuel 7. David has made up his mind to build a temple, and he tells the prophet Nathan he's going to do that. I won't rest until the here I am in a palace of cedar, and while the ark of God is in a tent, I won't rest until I build a house for the Lord. And Nathan says, attaboy, do that. He goes home that night. God comes to him in a vision, and he tells him, go and tell David, it's not for you to build a house for my name. Rather, I will build a house for your name. And a son from your own body will be the one to build my house. I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. And I'll punish him with the rod when he does wrong, but I will never take my love from him as I took it from your predecessor Saul. And I will make your name great like the great men of the earth, and you will never fail to have a man sitting on the throne. Um, and so this was understood to be, in the immediate sense, fulfilled by Solomon, who built the literal temple, but also it was a prophecy about the Messiah, the ultimate final son of David, who would also build the Lord's temple. In some It's thought that he would build the third temple, like a literal temple like Solomon's, because the Temple of Solomon was destroyed, and then the second temple was destroyed by the Romans, so that the Jews are waiting for the Messiah to come and build the third temple. But John's gospel is really all about how Jesus is himself the new temple and how he is creating a new temple. That the John 14, when he says, in my father's house are many dwelling places. I go there to prepare a place for you. Um, this is often mistaken to be about heaven, but he's talking about us becoming the temple. This is a setup for explaining the coming of the Holy Spirit, how when he goes away, the Spirit, the Father and the Son in the Spirit will come and make their homes in the disciples. Um, and so when Peter talks about Jesus as the living stone, and he invokes all this language from the Old Testament, and then he says that we are living stones. It's a play on words. We are stones out of which the temple are being built, but we're also sons out of which the house of God is being built. And you see this in the Didache. Um, for those unfamiliar, the Didache is it's Greek for the teachings, short for the teachings of the 12 apostles. It was basically a manual on how to do church. It's not probably, it is one of the oldest Christian writings outside of the New Testament, might even predate some New Testament books. But there's some instructions here for all kinds of things like baptism and fasting and church discipline. Uh, Now, concerning the Eucharist, give thanks as follows. First, concerning the cup. We give you thanks, our Father, for the holy vine of David, your servant, which you have made known to us through Jesus, your servant. To you be the glory forever. So, um, the holy vine of David was the wine, not to set aside the atoning sacrifice aspect of the cup, but they were also it was the vine of David in the sense of Christians were understood to have, through Jesus, to be grafted into the lineage of David, and partaking of the wine symbolize that as well. And I think that's based on, if not passages like that, at least like I think that passage is reflective of an idea that was just pervaded the church anyway. They were thinking of themselves as being grafted into the lineage of David. We're that covenant that God made with David. To be a Christian is to be in that covenant. Um, so Peter is invoking that, and that's just one layer going on there. But then when you also consider what the temple was, how that was an architectural, it was a portable, well, the tabernacle at least was a portable Mount Sinai, and it was an architectural recreation of the Garden of Eden. Um, so, and there's all kinds of stuff we can dig into that. But it would make for a really long show if I explored each one individually. But the bottom line is it's describing us as the temple and as the priesthood means it's easy to read that and kind of take it in the abstract. Oh, cool, we're the temple, and it's a doctrinal box that you check off. But that in and of itself is profound enough that we are the dwelling place of God. When if you read the Torah and see what that meant to people, what it meant in practical terms, the presence of God dwelling in the Holy of Holies, this was a terrifying and glorious thing. It was just it was they saw the glory of God, and they fell on their faces in awe, and they were also in deadly terror for their life because they knew they were sinners and could be destroyed by God's presence if they approached in an unworthy way. To say that that same God dwells in us individually and collectively as the church, um, words aren't adequate to capture that meaning. If you But if you just dive into the Torah and read about Mount Sinai and the temple operation, you can kind of get an appreciation for what that means. But beyond that, well, I don't want to say beyond that because it's really the same concept, just expressed in a different way. We are the priesthood as well. We represent God to the world. We're not just a passive receptacle for his presence, but we are an active projection of his presence into the world. Um, and so, yeah. Um,
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of quick things I would say. One is, just to go back to the wordplay. I don't even know that it's wordplay. I think it's very straightforward. Um, what you're saying is absolutely right. I mean, the when you have words that have the same letters, 90% of the time, the words are related. Like that's just the way Hebrew works. They weren't borrowing from other languages, right? Like
yeah.
they were clustering words. The word king and messenger and kingdom and rule share the same consonants, right? Like there's just little subtleties in all of those words, and there's probably other ones. My vocabulary is so
It
tiny right now,
it's a
but
very punny language,
yeah. But I don't. I mean, is
but
it punny or is
but
it just like
but not as a form of humor.
right?
It's just how that
Yeah.
it's just their conceptual cognitive framework made these associations between words.
Well, and I think part of that is, a lot of times for me, as I'm studying Hebrew, I have to keep reminding myself that this language is over 4,000 years old. And it, other written languages didn't exist when Hebrew was being developed by the early ancient Near Easterners, right? Like they were doing this from the beginning. When we made English, we were stealing from all of the other languages around
Yeah.
us, right? And not we, our English progenitors, right? Um, so sometimes I remind myself that you have to give them a pass. The fact they were inventing language broadly. Um,
Yeah.
and then to back up what you were saying about the wordplay between to build specifically. I mean, Strong's Concordance doesn't just agree with you. It actually says that the word origin of son is actually derived from the word built. or to
Hmm.
build. So the word to build, its definition includes to obtain children. So the word build in Hebrew actually meant to build a family or to build a house. It just context is the only cue you have as to what it means. So yeah, I think that's really a sound pull out of that language
Yeah.
there.
And the Masoretic, you can look at the vowel marking to distinguish between stone and sun.
Yeah,
In ancient biblical Hebrew, they didn't have vowel markings.
right.
It was just
Yeah,
so they were on the page the same word.
yeah, yeah. And when you said it out loud, it was the same word if you said it quickly,
Yeah.
right? People would be like, "Wait, what do you mean?" And then they would have to point and grunt to be like, "Build." You're like, "Oh,
Oh, right.
yeah." Um, so I think that's interesting, and I think that's kind of the more I'm starting to learn this and see all of this, I'm actually reading Bible verses differently as I'm translating because I'm having to actually suss out what the words mean. It's actually really quick side note, little nerd time with the Bible. When you mention the Masoretic text, and Brian, you probably know this, but I'm convinced most of our listeners don't. Um, the Masoretes, when they sat down and wrote out what's now the considered the Tanakh, like you said, everything that was written up until that time period had no vowels in it. So these guys
Or
sat down,
or punctuation.
yeah, and they basically added to, and it's a touchy conversation, right? They were adding to the Bible. But the cool
Mm.
thing is, and again, this is for the listeners, in every page there's massive, I don't know if I get this close enough so you can see it, but there's massive footnotes. So these footnotes down here and over here on the side is them actually explaining what they added and why they added, if they added something. So it's really kind of cool where they said, hey, the word as written was this. Pretty sure it's supposed to be this, but we're not changing it, which is kind of cool, right? Like it's
Yeah.
they certainly had an opinion and a point of view based on as language matures, knowing that some of this, all of it was at some level oral tradition and history before it was written down, and obviously things can get lost. Um, uh, the my instructor, one of the phrases that he uses when he was explaining this, he says there's inspiration and there's perspiration that went into the Bible. So he refers to all the work of the Masoretes as perspiration. He's like, we're not saying it's inspirational. We're saying it's honest and it's helpful. So there's perspiration to it, which is interesting. Anyway, I thought that was worth sharing.
Yeah. Dre, what do you think?
I I find all first of all of that fascinating. And it's one of those things that I have to go back and look at more. And since we've been kind of camped out on the two powers in heaven and also, the start of this podcast with the DCW, like I don't read anything the same anymore. It is just so different. and and everything that I maybe thought I knew or remembered is presented in a different way now. And it's what did Matt say that it's neat. It's neat. So
Is that an academic term you learned in your
Yeah,
Hebrew
yeah,
classes?
yeah,
it
yeah.
is so
Yeah,
so
sometimes it's just neat, man. You don't gotta
like
overdo it with fancy words.
wow, that's really neat. Um I
So,
mean I mean first and second Peter are important, obviously, but I think as like young Christians, we kind of just gloss over them. Like, yeah, yada yada, cornerstone, cool. Oh, yeah, yeah, temple, and then we get, we just got done reading all of Paul. Like, yeah, Paul already told us that. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, bro. And both of them are hearkening back to things that are older. And just through history, you have people trying to figure Christianity out and make it their kind of own thing. There was Christians like the Gnostics, Marcion, who just cut the entire Old Testament out. They and then in some of the New Testament, because they had too many quotes about the Old Testament, that he's like, okay, we'll just have Luke. Everybody else is wrong and stupid. So
Selected portions of Luke.
right, even
Yeah.
even more because why is Luke agreeing with all these other people? We don't like that, so we'll just cut that too. And I've even encountered Christians that have said out loud that the New Testament, like that new covenant, does away with old
Mhm.
covenants, and like why would we read Leviticus? Who cares about those rules when we
Well,
have
they're they're technically right, but actually wrong.
right,
Like I know what you mean. Like I know what they're saying, what they think they're saying. Like yes, it's true that we are not under the old covenant, we're under the new covenant, but that has no meaning if you don't understand the new covenant through the you can't
right.
bypass the old covenant to get to the new covenant. You have to come to it through you have to come up
It's kind of
underneath
like
it.
it's kind of like if you want to watch this new Rocky docudrama that's coming out, you have to actually have watched Rocky. Then you have to appreciate Rocky in order for the new version to actually take you to the next level.
Yeah. Or
Yeah, I mean,
you can't watch Return of the Jedi if you haven't watched A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. It's just, and I don't count the
but
prequels
I
at
but
all.
I do think though
The
in
prequels
my
are Enoch.
experience in my experience that it's not that essential. It's just setup. It's just
I,
background.
I think yeah. I mean, what we're all saying is if you only read the New Testament and you understood it, believed it, and lived it, would you be less of a Christian have not understanding and having read the Old Testament? That's probably it's as much a philosophical question as anything, right? Because you don't have to have it, but without it, it's the richness isn't there.
No, I think you have to have it.
I think you do too.
I don't think you do.
I don't think you can understand the New Testament without
Well,
it.
Well, that's
Oh,
that's
you
that's
said that if
that's
you
that's an
you said if you
opinion.
read it and understand it and believe it, right? And I don't think you can. I don't think you can do all those things without having the actual background.
It's hard to say, right? Like there's plenty of people that have read the Old Testament and still don't get it. So like
well, sure, but I think it's largely because well, they've looked at the Old Testament, but have they read it? And that's kind of the point that I'm getting at. If you if you bring a bunch of beliefs with you from outside, I mean, if you've I grew up watching Looney. I wasn't raised in church, but I grew up watching Looney Tunes, and I saw when Sylvester the cat had a piano dropped on him, his 9 lives went up to heaven with angel wings and robes,
mhm.
playing harps, and it like, oh, well, that's what happens when you die, and that's what they're talking about on those church services I see on TV. Um, the vast majority of people, myself included, we were long before we ever picked up the Bible and read it for ourselves, we were told by others what it's about, and that shaped our understanding of what we're coming to the Bible to accept. And for many years, I that's what I did. I didn't really read it. I went to it and I projected the beliefs I already had onto the page and bounced back to myself, and I was convinced I was reading it. But a lot of what we take for granted is just not in there. So that's a major barrier, but also to the idea that let's just say for the sake of argument that somebody's coming to it with a clean slate. The passage we're talking about, 1 Peter 2, when he says that you come to him a living stone, rejected by mortals, but chosen by God the Father, and you too are living stones being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood. What does any of that mean if you haven't, like, if you don't have the covenant of David and the the Israelite sacrificial system in
That's fair.
Leviticus to understand I mean, in that whole passage, it's it the whole thing is written out of Old Testament references that he expected people to understand. Um, he
Yeah, that's a fair
wasn't
point.
so if you don't
Have,
if you
have you ever seen the deep internet theory that after Sylvester had that piano dropped on his head, he never blinked in another cartoon episode ever again? And
no
that's
no
why Tom, or not Sylvester, it was Tom and Jerry. Um, that Tom never,
you're getting your animated cinematic universes
yeah,
mixed up.
the cat never died up until the time he had the piano dropped on his head. And after that, Jerry relentlessly killed him over and over and over again.
Well, you're talking about Sylvester. Is this a metaphor for like a Bible
No,
interpretation, or are you
no,
okay? Well,
no.
you're
The
conflating.
video is,
Tom has also been killed.
yeah, Tom dies in a very similar scenario, and he goes to heaven, and then he goes up to heaven, and he gets sent down to hell in
Yeah,
the
I've seen
cartoon.
that one.
Yeah. Every episode after that, Jerry relentlessly punishes that cat and he kills him over and over and over again. But he never
So
did it before.
so Jerry is just in hell the whole time.
Yeah. And he never blinks.
It's
Tom,
deep,
not
man.
Jerry. Tom's the cat, right?
Tom's the cat.
Yeah.
Jerry's just doing God's work and just
Hmm.
killing that demon over and over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Died.
Or
or
that's
Jerry
hell.
is
It's
the
just that,
demon
yeah, it's just the
Oh,
demon in
torturing.
hell and it looks like the regular world. Yeah.
That's
he's just
pretty
in this.
deep.
He's in this hell loop.
Yep.
That's
That's the
pretty
fan
deep, man.
theory. Yeah. Don't do
Mm.
drugs, kids.
I'm glad we covered that. So Dre, off when we were before the show, you were talking about how you read First Peter chapter 2 differently now after the two powers in heaven discussion. Um, did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, I think that even even beyond telling us you know what that stone is, I think that he reveals that stone to be well. He makes references to say that it's Yahweh because that's what it says in Isaiah and Psalms. Like that's the meaning.
Yeah.
But he reveals that that's also Jesus, and I think that's where kind of the his modern controversy comes into play. Hence the preaching. He's talking to Jews who you know would probably reject this. Oh, so but it's a it's a teaching that they used to give. That the Messiah will be that. So the fact that they rejected him as Messiah, that no longer has the same meaning to them. So I think even more than telling us or Christians, what and who we are, uh, I think that Peter, without saying Jesus is the Christ, is saying that Jesus is Yahweh of the Old Testament.
Um, in the Targums, which were um, commentaries on the Hebrew scriptures during the Second Temple period, um, they spoke Aramaic, and so they you had to be not everybody was fluent in Hebrew, and so they had what are called the Targums, which basically just are kind of uh, rabbinical paraphrases of the scriptures for Aramaic speakers. In the Targums, they identify in Psalm 118, verse 22, that which Peter quotes, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Yahweh has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Yahweh has done it this very day. Let us rejoice today and be glad. Um, Lord, save us. Lord, grant us success. Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh. From the house of Yahweh, we bless you. Yahweh is God. He has made his light shine on us. So, like that, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. This is a messianic prophecy. Um, the in the Targums, they identified the stone the builders rejected as the rejected son of Jesse. So they were drawing this parallel between David being rejected by the sons of Jesse, by the house of Jesse. For those who don't know the story, when Samuel was sent by God to the house of Jesse to anoint Saul's replacement as king, Jesse brought all of his sons before Samuel to see if he would anoint them, except for David, and God rejected them all. Um, um, Samuel said, are these all of them? And well, there's David. He's out with the flocks, and we'll bring him in. And then he comes in, and God tells Samuel, rise and anoint him. He is the one. So David was rejected by his family, by men, chosen by God, and they understood that to be a parallel to the Messiah. The Messiah is the stone the builder rejected, who will become the chief cornerstone. And so, rejecting Jesus, the bottom line is, according to Jewish understandings of the scriptures prior to the coming of Jesus, the Messiah would be rejected, and it's all tied into this wordplay between sons and stones and what you build your house of and that kind of thing. And that's just one example of that kind of language running through the Old Testament. So, um, regarding the thing about the two powers in heaven that made me think of this, um, this concerns how God reveals himself to the world. He reveals himself to the world through the second person. But according to this, among plenty of other passages, the church is the continuation of the incarnation. Um, God is incarnate on earth through us. The Holy Spirit, to act in the world, must be embodied, and that's the point of the church. Um, the reason I brought up the whole the gospel is 100% eschatology, 0% afterlife. We often treat the eschatology part as an afterthought and the afterlife as the main event, which doesn't leave much for the church to do. So we have this kind of passive, inert view of what it means to be the temple of the Lord. Um, but no, if you read it without that afterlife presupposition and read it as it is, 100% eschatology, the church is God's agent for working toward the renewal of the world. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This is being done in the here and now. It's supposed to be being done in the here and now through the church. Um, so Matt, you look like you're
Yeah,
thinking real hard.
I was got something that this remind. I wanted to bring this up in a show that I want to talk about for a little bit, and this is a perfect time because of the going back to the Hebrew stuff and the divine council. So this is like it's a little bit of left field, but it's linked to what Brian brought up and then linked to what Dreda said about the DCW. So the word prince. Every time the word prince is used in the Old Testament, it is never once used to refer to the son of the king. The word is sar, and it's always used to describe a leadership position, right? So you guys, I'd give you a couple of quick references. Genesis 40, the chief cupbearer, the chief baker. Most famously, it's used in Daniel 10 when it's talking about the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece. And then Michael is called the great prince, the Sar Gadol. Anytime they talk about what we consider princes today, they use Benny. They use Benny. They say the son of the king, Benny Malak Benny, or Benny Malak, or more directly, they'll say the son of David, the son of Saul, etc. It's just really interesting, um, because the whole concept of the principalities of evil and that the princes were the leaders of those principalities, and that's really the root of that word and how it's meant to be used somewhere in England, I guess. I don't know where the word prince started. I haven't done a whole word map to figure out how the words change, but it is used in the New Testament. as we use prince commonly. And I'm sure that's the Greek influence in the language and the change of the way we talk about things. I ran like I said, I ran across this a couple of weeks ago. I found it fascinating, and I was like, is this because it as I had been translating, I'm like, I keep seeing this word, but it's not used the way I expect it to be used every time I see it. So then I went and did like a word search and like, how many times is this used in the Old Testament? Does it ever show up and mean what we call it, a prince? And it doesn't. But every time it's, David's the son of David, the son of Israel, sons of Israel, right? Like it's just interesting. And so anytime, listeners, that you see the word prince in the Old Testament or any type of ancient, I guess, Hebrew writing, it's a DCW, or it could be a leader. It could be a governor or that type of a position, but it never means son of a king. I just thought that was interesting.
Hmm.
Again, I keep having these little aha moments, and I just want to share them with everybody. So this podcast has no choice but to listen to me talk about it. You're
Okay.
welcome.
Um, cool. Um,
So what do we do with this, Brian?
well, there's another DCW reference that kind of ties into this. We've actually done a show on it before, but um, it was one of our more awkward shows, and I'm not sure I communicated it very well. But Ephesians
You're going to have to be more
4,
specific.
hilarious. Um, so this concept of the church as the temple, this shows up, and this was one of Dr. Heiser's passages that he spoke at great length on. Ephesians 4, Paul writes, make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There was one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. But to each one of us, grace has been given as Christ apportioned it. This is why it says, when he ascended on high, he took many captives and gave gifts to people. And he's quoting Psalm 68. And he goes on, and we'll put a pin in that. What does he ascended mean, except that he also descended to lower earthly regions? He who descended is the very one who ascended higher than all the heavens in order to fill the whole universe. So Christ himself, and again, this is based on Psalm 68. So Christ himself gave that some would be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, pastors, and teachers to equip his people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we will no longer be infants tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. From him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. So the way that he quotes Psalm 68, it's almost like he doesn't he barely elaborates on it. Um, he just sort of expects its meaning to be evident to the Ephesians. He just quotes this one little verse to make this whole big expansive point about what the church is and what it's supposed to be doing. Psalm 68, it's about it starts, may God arise, may his enemies be scattered, may his foes flee before him. And it along with these praises of God and descriptions of his nature and kind of general appeals to who he is, it kind of goes through these specific events from Israel's history, beginning with the Exodus, through to battles and judges, and it comes through Mount Bashan, majestic mountain, Mount Bashan, rugged mountain. Why gaze and envy, you rugged mountain, at the mountain where God chooses to reign, where Yahweh himself will dwell forever? The chariots of God are tens of thousands, the thousands of thousands. The Lord has come from Sinai into his sanctuary, or into his temple. When you ascended on high, you took many captives, you received gifts from people, even from the rebellious, that you, Yahweh Elohim, might dwell there. So Psalm 68 is presenting this picture of this triumphal procession of God, like when a conqueror would return home from conquering, they would bring plunder from all of the lands they conquered, leading a train of captives as kind of trophies for their conquest. God is depicted doing this. Um, and it mentions the mountain of Bashan as this rival. Why do you look with envy on the mountain that God has chosen for a dwelling place? You guys know it, of course. For the listener's sake, do you want to elaborate on what the Mount of Bashan is?
Did you say somebody, or are you just passing it off so you stop talking?
Um,
Yeah, I mean, so
Either one.
yeah, Bashan is it's a reference to essentially the last of the Nephilim and the last group of basically the enemies of God. Um,
What's a
it's
reference to Mount Hermon?
well, yeah, and Bashan specifically is referenced in Psalm 22 when what Christ alludes to as he's being crucified, um,
The
where
bulls of
the
Bashan.
yeah the bulls of Bashan and all of that. But yeah, it's essentially the hate the portal to Tartarus is the doorway to Tartarus is there, and that's where Christ and Peter were standing when he made his comments about on this rock I'll build my church.
And the region of Bashan is where Mount Hermon is located, which is where the events of Genesis 6 happened, where the Watchers descended and swore their pact to father the Nephilim. And so it represents the principalities and powers that the New Testament talks about that we're at war with, that region is indicative of them.
Yeah,
And
and
so
to the point you were making earlier, uh, anytime these references were made, they're always made with no real further elucidation. They don't say because everybody knows what we're talking about. They moved on because they knew everybody knew what they were
yeah,
talking about, and that's why it's so hard for us to read this if we're not bringing the correct worldview to the readings because we're just like, why was this guy shaking his fist at a mountain? You beautiful mountain, like that doesn't make any sense. But when you understand that it's symbolic of the actual spiritual war that is going on, that is central to the entire story of the Bible, it kind of makes a little bit of sense.
yeah. And Psalm 68 specifically is about God going on this triumphal procession that terminates on Mount Zion, where the temple is built. God coming into his sanctuary is seen as this eschatological event. This is the final state of things when God dwells with man on earth. Except you only get kind of a preview of that in the Old Testament with Solomon building the temple and bringing the ark into it. This is just a picture of the final state. But the church, as the new temple, Paul is applying that psalm to us. God coming to dwell in Mount Zion and giving gifts to his people is so basically Psalm 68 is simultaneously describing um, the temple being established in Jerusalem under Solomon, the day of Pentecost when the church was born, but also the second coming of Christ when his feet stand on the Mount of Olives and he is seen by the nations. These are all essentially the same the same idea, the same event, bringing brought to further fulfillment. But the if the church today is the temple, but we're not a literal fixed building, we're a priesthood. Um, that means that conquering procession of God, that's us. Like we're supposed to be doing that in the world. Um, that's the Great Commission. So like in that passage in Ephesians where he describes what the church is and what it's supposed to be doing, do you think that describes the church as we know it? Like, do you recognize that as the church today?
Which passage?
Ephesians 4, where There is one body, one Lord, one faith, one God and Father of all. Um, Christ gave that some would be apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers to prepare God's people for works of service, um, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. And then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves, blown here and there by every wind of teaching, and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. Um, so, and he goes on to describe maturity, fullness, completeness in the body. Um,
I mean,
so,
I think some of it applies. I don't think all of it does. I don't. I mean, it's certainly a whole separate conversation. I don't think I want to get into that 2 hours into this episode. We can do that on another episode. But like, I mean, some of it applies.
huh.
I think the biggest thing that does. I mean, what do you mean, huh? You think none of it applies?
Um, well, I think that I think it's supposed to apply. I think those are
That's
our marching orders. But
that's not the question nor the answer. You didn't ask me, do I think it's real? You asked, do we think it applies? And I said, I think some of it applies. And you said, huh,
well,
like that's the dumbest answer I've ever heard. So
well,
that
when
implies
I
you think none of it's actually is
when I
visible or
when I
apparent.
when I say do you think it applies? Do you think it's descriptive of the
Right.
church that we see? Like
I
it
interpreted
obviously applies.
right. I interpreted what you meant, or I might have misstated. But yeah, I think it describes a great sum of what we see. Certainly
Huh.
not all of what we see.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
Okay. Well,
We actually
let's
had this conversation in my men's group this weekend. I brought this passage up, and there was an older gentleman there who read this as we were all pretty much agreed that that this does not describe the church as we know it, and that this is, but some of the more kind of traditionally minded people argued that this is a prophet, this is a promise from God that He's going to bring this about. It's Christ who is building up His church. Um,
yeah, he already did his part.
yeah,
He's kind of dead.
I
Well,
asked.
was
Well, he's with us always,
right.
but
But his
and
building of the church part is done.
um, I don't. I wouldn't go that far, but I think to read this, well, I challenged him. Is that a promise and a prophecy, or is that a set of instructions and a mission statement that
Hmm.
like is it something God is going to do for us that He's promising here, or is this Him giving us instructions? Um, and that nobody liked that question, so it kind of moved on, and we ran out of time, so it didn't get
Speaking
fleshed
of
out.
moving on, we're going to move on.
I guess we picked a topic for next episode.
Yeah.
Cool, I'm game. Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a good plan.
Yeah, I think it's a natural continuation of this conversation. We started with like, why is Peter telling us that we're the church? So then, a logical next step is what should we be doing? I think that's fair game.
Yeah.
It's fair dinkum.
All right. So we did not solve First Peter 2.
We did. We
We
just didn't solve Ephesians 4.
um Ephesians 4 is the solution to First Peter 2.
Sure.
I mean, we're on this, we're violently agreeing. So
As one does.
I mean, as we do.
We'll hermeneut around it and we'll figure it out.
yeah.
I,
All right. Well, I'm done talking, I guess. So
so you don't have any save rounds. You have no other final thoughts here?
that was my saved round. That was my
Okay, right.
so
And it was like a whole other course of fire.
Right.
So
yeah.
Brian, you
it
make a
wasn't a
save
save
round.
round.
Brian's like, I got this whole belt.
Just keep that chambered for next week.
Matt,
No. Oh, yeah, no, that was it. The
Okay.
Prince thing was what I wanted to bring up.
So
Oh, the
stay
Prince.
enlightened and curious, everyone. Go hermeneutic.
Like Brian said, and God bless. See you next week.